What? Then my watch is off. Oh, it is off by 2 minutes.
Now we're live.
Let's go. We ready, people? Divide. Let's finish the seat, okay? We're on page 22. Okay. Now, I just wasted a lot of time on 3 paragraphs, but I didn't waste it. The Rebbe added something very important in the last class over what we learned the previous weeks, which is that it wasn't that the Mizbeach kept him busy. It was the Mizbeach was a message. Stay here. That's the point. Stay here. Don't go away. It's a gewaldige message. It's a gewaldige message. Stay here. This is your purpose. I'll tell you a very unpleasant story, a very, very poignant story. It's painful. Tzemach Tzedek was a baby when his mother passed away. Tzedek was a little bit after 3 years old. And she gave her life with Alter Rebbe to live. It's a whole long story. She found out that Alter Rebbe's life was in danger for spiritual reasons. She got together a bezdin and she made them swear that they'll do whatever she tells them, and then she made them swear that she should die instead of her father, and she didn't. And the Alter Rebbe knew what she did. And there's a lot of very poignant description of the people that Sichas about her passing. But before she passed away, she asked the Alter Rebbe to raise her son. The Tzemach Tzedek, and the Alter Rebbe raised the Tzemach Tzedek, some will say, with more of a father to his grandson than he was to his own son. And when she first passed away, he was 3 days and 3 years old. He was 3 days after his Hashem. Alter Rebbe moved his little bed into his office. And Alter Rebbe would learn all night, and he would sleep. He slept in the same room with the Alter Rebbe. I don't know for how long. But there's a story that's brought from Chassidim. It could be it's from the Rebbe, but I don't remember. Where he was sleeping. Tzemach Tzedek was sleeping, and he had a dream. He obviously saw his mother, but he cried out loud. In other words, the people in the room heard him crying. He said, Mother, take me to where you are. Mother, take me to where you are. And they heard her voice. I don't know, they heard her voice. And she said, Shasha, Shluf. The Zayd is though. Sleep, stay where you are. The Zayd is with you. Doesn't take much for me to cry. Don't get excited. Okay, I'm an old man. It's an age thing. Shasha, Shluf, the Zayd is though. This is the story. Meisha Rabbeinu will build the Mizbeach, and the Mizbeach is the message. We stay here. We're not going up the mountain. So it wasn't that he couldn't find time. He was doing it with conscience. He was doing it conscientiously. This Mizbeach means shuv. Settle, not the rock, so not run away from here, go to the Eibishter. Shuv, make a deal. That's what Mizbeach represented. Moshe got it, Moshe Rabbeinu was very, very holy. And because he was so holy, he got what the Eibishter was saying. And the Eibishter was saying, it's not about me, it's about the world. Bring me to the world. That's what this Mizbeach represents. Okay? Now we continue. Chazal Zogin. Now you see what I do. I underline certain words. And by doing that, I'm really manipulating the Sichos in the direction in which I want them to go. I'm not changing the Kavanah, but I am. If I taught you a whole Sikh, it'll take me a month. A month of teaching you every day, not once a week. You understand? Mm-hmm. So I do X. Sometimes I do X of a Sikh in the kind of way that I know that I'm literally missing whole parts of the Sikh that give opposite perspectives. Because we learn just what I think we should learn. Chazal Zog, and the rabbis tell us, think about it. It's a pasuk in Parshas Chukas, where it's called Shira Sabe'el, the song the Jewish people sang when they made when they renewed the well of Miriam. So it all Yoshi Yisrael as a Shira Zeis. Ali be'er enula, be'er chafaru atzarim, karu adiviyam, whatever it Mishanisam. Then is a matana, umidva matano, matana aliyah, nechlameh. So a moisa gaya shal neisahim, v'nishkal of neishim. And I'm missing words. But amongst the words in that little section is midbar matana. Midbar means from the desert came the gift. From a desert, a place with no life, came the gift. What is this gift? Huh? Torah. Kamet Taimen, there's a number of reasons brought in the Gemara about the matana from Torah, why the gift of the Torah is verbunden mit midbar was given in the desert. The Rambam brings that one of the reasons the Torah was given in the desert was to declare to the whole world that the Torah belongs to no one. Nobody owns it. The Kahuna, the priesthood, belongs to Aaron's family. The Melucha, the kingship, belongs to Yehuda, David's family. The Torah, anybody can take it. It's hefker. It's free. Nobody can say to another person, you're not entitled to Torah. Anybody who wishes to take a Torah. It's hefker. It's Munah B'Mokum hefker, and anybody can take it. And of course, the Rambam brings Yokarehi Mepnidim, that if a person is a mamzer, they're so illegitimate that they cannot marry, and they take the gift of Torah, they're greater than the Kohen Gadol. That's nichnas lefnai v'lefnim. Gadol mamzer Talmud Chacham Ikei and Gadol Amaretz. A mamzer who's illegitimate, who's a Talmud Chacham is in a higher madrege than the Kohen Gadol who goes lefnai with the pasuk. Yikara, we say that Simchas Torah. Yikara, he, the Torah is more precious mepnidim than he who goes lefnim b'toich pnim, goes into the holy holies. But the beginning of it is that the Torah is hefker in the desert. But in that Gemara, there's not one reason, but a whole bunch of reasons for why the Torah was given in the desert. And the Rebbe brings a different reason. It doesn't mean the reason I just brought you from the Rambam brings a different reason. One of the reasons that the Gemara said, the pasuk said, that the gift of Torah is not in the desert. Eine von den Yonim in Midbar. One of the concepts of a desert was bring the matana von Torah that gives us the gift of the Torah. In Adar, again, using the language of the Gemara, it's the same Gemara. In all the Mesim Atzmei to Midbar Zeh, a person makes of himself like a desert. Now, what about a desert? Desert has no roads. Desert has no pathways. So where do you walk? Wherever you want. People trample all over it. A person who's like a desert, meaning he allows people to step all over him, figuratively speaking. Torah gives him as a gift. So there's many reasons in the Gemara in Masechta Edom why the Torah is given in a desert, and one of them has to do with the taker. That to receive the Torah, you have to have bittul. You have to have bittul. Bittul in English means bittul. You can't really translate it. When you translate the word bittul into English, it absolutely destroys the nuance and the kindness of the term. It comes across very beautiful. Bittul, which will translate as submission. Yeah, they tell a story that the Rebbe came to the house of a big misnagid. And this misnagid, in those days, he hated chassidus. So the misnagid showed him that he had a table that limped. The table limped. It wasn't, the legs were not straight. So he took a sefer name, Elimelech, with the Chassidish sefer, the oldest Chassidish for him, and he put it under that leg so the table should be straight. Now, the Rebbe was a chassid. He was also a very big god. And the Misnagid respected Alter Rebbe because of his loveness. He said, I hate Chassidus and I hate Chassidim. And I took this Chassidish sefer and I put it under the leg of the table. But can you tell me something about the author of this sefer? The Alter Rebbe said, yeah. If you would put him under that leg, he'd be as quiet as his sefer. Alter Rebbe said, if you would put him under that leg, he'd be as quiet as the book is not screaming. He wouldn't scream either. The Alter Rebbe said, like this is the touch, humility. Based on the above. The most important thing about this date, the 5th of Sivan, Friday, the 5th of Sivan, even though so many things happened, they went through the gear, there were many karbanos, and they were busy with Prishos, don't forget Prishos, right? But the most important event that happened that day, B'shaychus to Matan Torah, in as much as the fact that the next day, they were actually going to get the Torah. Is in them was born a mizbeach v'hikir v'lov korban. Moshe Rabbeinu builds mizbeach himself, and he offers up one sacrifice. And the reason this becomes the key event of the day, as the Gemara indicates, because this one event doesn't only say tomorrow we're going to get the Torah. This one event says start practicing it now. How do you practice Judaism? Stay in this world. Don't run away. That means we must say, as oich derim, and also this idea, the idea of specifically building a mizbeach, which which keeps Moshe Rabbeinu grounded on the ground, is verbunden mit Midbar, it's connected to the other day. So what's the connection between a Mizbeach made of stone in the desert and the Yom Kippur? Is that a beard and then the explanation is. Now they give it another reason. The time was Torah of the Yevin Yavon and Amid Badam. Another reason, in addition to the reason that the Torah was given in the desert to connote submission, bittul. Another reason the Torah was given in the desert is Kemaim and Chazal, which says in the same Gemara in Erevin, in the Chefta from Torah, has to do with the entity of the Torah itself. Quote, the is Hefker Lakol. She's free to anybody who wants to take it, can live like a debt. Nobody owns the Torah. Nobody can say the Torah is mine.
That's the first reason you gave?
No. The first reason is the person who's learning it is humble. And then you say to the Torah. The second reason is that the Torah is free for anybody to take it. Yeah, when Hashem gave the Torah, it doesn't belong to a family. Anybody who wants to find a Rashi, one of the nicest Rashis in Chumash. At the very end of the Chumash, Moshe had a right to Sefer Torah. And according to many opinions, he literally wrote it the day before he passed away. He passed away on the Shabbos. On the Shabbos, he had not allowed to write. It's one of the Shabbos. He wrote it on Friday. He wrote a whole Sefer Torah, which is a big book. And he gave it to Shevet Levi. He gave it to his tribe, Levi. So the Jews gagged up and Moshe Rabbeinu. And they said, tomorrow your tribe is going to say that the Torah belongs only to them. So Moshe Rabbeinu was very, very delighted by the protest. And he sat down on that day and wrote 12 more Sefer Torah, beginning to end. And he, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how it's possible. And he gave one to each Shevet. He was so heartened by their protest. He was so happy that they, quote, cared, that he gave it to owner of nation. If the Torah does not have an owner, the owner of the Torah, one who possesses it, the Torah's have. So the Torah is given in the desert to connote bittul. The Torah is given in the desert to connote that anybody wishes to come and take it. Okay? And also that the work is in the place of it. The kavanah for Matan Torah is kanaf. So you see, here's the point. Here's the point. Reason number one, Torah is given in the desert is you gotta be humble. Okay? Reason number two, Torah is given in the desert is that you can take it, nobody can stop you from taking it, won't say about it. Reason number three, it was given in the desert is to send a message. The whole point of Torah is to make the desert bloom. Especially for the Zionists. You have to make the desert alive. What's the desert? This world. Look. The Kabbalah from the Torah is canal. The whole point of dealing with it is. Was in Torah, we gave them the Koyach. The Torah give it when the Asian gave us the but let us take it that we give it the strength. To machen von a Hefte from Bell to make a peace in this world. Hefte the Kedusha, a holy peace, which is called in Hebrew, Machen Adar lay his brother for the Torah made this world for his brother. And what does this world mean? Atachten b'madrega, the lowest step, lowest level. She'etach l'mata, there's no step lower than this one. Be'inyan has to aid his brother. In the aspect of divine concealment, there is no greater concealment than God has concealed in this world. You know why? Because less than 0% cannot exist. The presence of Hashem in this world, in terms of revelation, is zero. He's present, but you don't see him at all. So the in Hester is Baruch, and the aspect of Hashem being hidden, Hashem cannot be more hidden than the way he's hidden in this world, because he's hidden completely in this world. To the extent that this world is not just a place where Hashem is not revealed, but it's a place where Klippa sit to the Achara dominate, because Hashem is completely hidden. Okay, now that is called a desert, spiritually speaking. Well, that fad is the Torah that you get. This is the third reason why the Torah was given in the desert. Let's talk it over. Reason number one, it was given in the desert to conjure up bittul. Reason number two was the one I told you first. I did say it first orally. That the Torah was given in the desert to conjure up. Get anybody who wants to take it. Nobody can say it's mine and not yours. The Torah belongs to anybody who wants it. Anybody who wants to take it. Number three, that you have to bring godliness to a desert. Make a home for Hashem in the lowest road. Huh? When they're fat, is tailing getting whatever. This is the third reason said that. Top of page 23 now. Or the Torah was given in a desert because a midbar for the Yashav Adam on top of the desert means the place where no people can live. So according to Kabbalah, Adam means Adam means godliness. A desert means the place which is void even of godliness, and it's Makam a Kleep. It's a place of Kleep on the other side, and the void of a Yid is to live in that desert and bring the English to that desert as well. That's what happened on Friday, the day before the Torah was given. I tried in Edinburgh, the day before the Torah. So in all other aspects of that date, he was doing spiritual stuff. He was doing things which are about going away from this place. But in this aspect, Al Shine and Edinburgh and Torah, the day before the Torah would be given, the only the Aveda from Adar in the middle of the work of correcting the lower world rather than ignoring the lower world begin. The Vadas and the midbar, the Yumas that to be correction to the desert of the other side. Dorach Nemen for the Avonim Shabbat, take even the stones which have no life, or Machem Hashem and make out of a lifeless collection of stones of the bed for the. And that's what we got. It's the end of the season. The learning. So the takeaway of the season is it's not that Moshe doesn't go onto the mountain because he can't find time. Moshe doesn't go onto the mountain because the Mizbeach is telling him stay here. That's the point of everything. Okay? Questions or comments? Because people trample all over a desert. If you live in a neighborhood that has grass on the front lawn, right? The Crown Heights is a special neighborhood. We have only gold and diamonds on our front lawn. But some people have grass, yeah? So you live in a suburban neighborhood. I mean, maybe you live in Argentina, you said or Brazil. Which city? So the big buildings, all those in apartments, right?
Yeah.
Right. But there are places in the world where people live spread out, sprawling. So you have a house and between one house and another. There's a driveway and there's grass, yeah? And there's a walkway up to the house. And you walk dafka on the grass. You speak English. So the host is going to open the door and says, would you mind walking on the pathway? You're ripping up my grass. You're trampling on my flowers, right? You can't walk where you want. Why? Because there's order. And what happens if it was a desert? You can walk wherever you want. There's no path. That's the ability to walk, to trample on any place. There's no, you can't walk here, only walk here. Walk wherever you want. That's the concept of it.
How is that?
Stepping on somebody is big. Stepping on somebody is big.
Like the example that he gave of the sefer underneath the table and the explanation that like the author himself would be as silent as the book was because he had complete bittul. Like it's taken in a more literal way in the sense, but the idea is that like you are nothing in the eyes of Hashem. And like if someone walks at you, that's
You understand?
it's what Hashem wants.
Not in the eyes of Hashem, in the presence of Hashem. The eyes of Hashem are very important. In the presence of Hashem. The big difference.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, anybody else want to say something? You got time, people.
Can you tell us the story with the remainder of the time?
Yeah, I could do that. I want to tell you a good story. I had a conversation with the boys yesterday in the yeshiva. Either yesterday or Monday. Yesterday was a really weird day for me.
What's the conversation about?
About Israel. And about Aliyah. Rabbi Shlomo Goren, who's now deceased, he was the former chief rabbi of Israel. There was a period of many years where he was incredibly close to the Rebbe. They had an open door. At some point, something happened, and the Rebbe wouldn't see him anymore. But to his incredible credit, as long as he lived, he did anything he could to help Chabad, even though the Rebbe wouldn't see him. He never took it personally. He never punished the Rebbe for He knew why the Rebbe wouldn't see it. He knew what he had done wrong, and he appreciated the Rebbe's position. I know for a fact that, not important, that after Gimel Tammuz, he was still helping Chabad. He knows that he came from it. Rabbi Ashkenazi, the family made a book about it. You see that he helped, he had a certain MS. Anyway, so Rabbi Goren met the Rebbe many times. He spoke Yiddish, he was yeshiva bach, he was a paratrooper, you understand? And a god, a genius of Torah, and a paratrooper in the Israeli army. He was part of, the Mizrahi group, they're very, very religious, they're very, very learned, and they're very into Eretz Yisrael. So he asked the Rebbe in Yiddish, does the Rebbe support the idea of Aliyah? And the Rebbe answered him in Yiddish, I support the idea of Nisha Eretz Yisrael, which is a halach. It's a mitzvah to settle Eretz Yisrael. Now, what's the difference between Aliyah and Nisha Eretz Yisrael? I'm not sure. So he asked the Rebbe a second time, does the Rebbe support the idea of Aliyah? And the Rebbe answered a second time, he called for Nisha Eretz Yisrael. And they went back and forth 4 or 5 times. And the Rebbe would not change his answer. Most how the Lubavitch Rebbe, the Rebbe support the Aliyah, the Rebbe answered called for Nisha Eretz Yisrael. In the modern world, there's a lot of people who believe that the greatest mitzvah you can do is go live in Israel, even in the from world. The Rebbe never believed that. He just didn't. For sure, the Rebbe did not believe it for Jewish leaders. The Rebbe used to write letter after letter after letter after letter to rabbis and even the lay leaders that the captain is the last one that leaves the ship. When every other Jew in your community goes to Israel, you can think about going. The Harav, the Yisrael Baruch Tzedek, the Baba Sali, who was 15 years older than the Rebbe, much older, wanted to move to New York. The Rebbe wrote him a letter in the early years, 1952, and the Rebbe wrote to him, a shepherd goes where his flock is. Nobody needs you in New York, you need it in Israel. And he stayed. You know what kind of humility that was? The Rebbe was the Rebbe for 2 years, a relatively unknown, but he was a spiritual man. He was his holiness put him in touch with the Rebbe's holiness, in a more direct way. And he acquiesced to the Rebbe. He acquiesced to the Rebbe. He stayed in Israel. He never visited America, not once. Not once. He would have loved to have met the Rebbe face to face. It would have been such a beautiful meeting. Because he Pasha loved the Rebbe. He loved him. Anyway, but the Rebbe's approach towards people staying where they were was not limited only to leaders. The Rebbe believed that Jews should not necessarily run away from the country they're in, period. In other words, even if nobody moves you pick up the whole community in lock, stock, and barrel and move to Israel, and you take all the schnutters of all the people who can't afford to pay their own way, and the ones who get left behind and suffer. The Rebbe did not believe that Jews should go up to Israel unless they had a reason. That was his approach, which is interesting. The Rebbe is such a deep supporter of Israel. And if you're gonna tell the Rebbe I'm moving, where should I move to? Of course, we'll say move to Israel. When the Russians came out of Russia in the late 80s, the Rebbe said, if they move to America, they're going from one ghost to another ghost. Let them go to Israel. The Rebbe indicated going to Israel is not a ghost compared to the ghost of the Soviet Union. But the Rebbe really was unfavored of people moving. And some of the stories about this are quite telling. So I'll tell you 2 stories, just to the point of telling stories. The first is a mamish, it's a crazy story, but the story was told by people who were personally involved. The true story. In 1982, there was a war in Lebanon, in Galil, it was called, in Galil. I mean, Lebanon was at one time, it was the Paris of the Middle East. I forgot what they called it. I'm using the wrong word. It was very beautiful. It was very rich, and it was secular. People used to go on vacation in Lebanon. Lebanon had good relations with Israel. The PLO was in Jordan. That's not was in Jordan. Jordan, after the PLO, they kicked them out. They went into Lebanon and destroyed that country. That country is destroyed now more than 40 years. It's become a terrible place to live. And the Christians and the Muslims that are the fights. There was a lot of what do they call it? Racial killings and all of these words that they use. Genocide. What do they call it? The cleansing, ethnic cleansing. It's been going, that's what was going on in 11, it's still going on in 11. And the Lebanese, the PLO started attacking northern Israel, so Israel went into the Lebanon. I remember that war, I remember that summer, I remember the Rebbe ringing and screaming, they should finish what they started. There were pictures of Israeli soldiers with Yasser Arafat in the crosshairs of their viewfinder. Could have shot him straight between the eyes. And they wouldn't hold the trigger. For political reasons, idiots. The end was they let the PLO leave.
Seriously?
They let them go. 7,000 fighters were allowed to leave Lebanon, and they went to Tunisia. And PLO picked up at Tunisia until they were invited back to live in Gaza. And we all know the rest of that story. With intifadas and the Yamach Shalom. We brought this onto ourselves. They could have destroyed the PLO then in Lebanon. They certainly could have destroyed them when they were running away. Anyway, they went to Tunisia. And I remember the Israelis used to sneak into Tunisia in the night and kill members of the PLO. That happened. The Sochnut decided, the Israeli Department of Immigration decided that all the Jews in Tunis are in imminent danger, because the PLO hates Jews, and they all have to make Aliyah. There was thousands of Jews. I don't know how many thousands, but it was thousands of Jews. It wasn't a million Jews, but it was thousands. So they came to the leadership of the Tunisian community and said, we're here to facilitate the entire community, lock, stock, and barrel, and they picked themselves up and moved to Israel. And of course, this is Israel's religion, the whole religion of Israel, you know. The Gemara says, Tayag Mitzvah didn't know the Yisrael, we were given 630 commandments, and Yeshaya made them into 11, and David made them into 4, and the 7, and so also made them into 4, and Boch Habakov, Vamid and Alachaf, Habakov made them into 1. The Tzadik, the Manasseh Yichya, so the new version is Bob Ben Gurion, Vamid and Alachas, Aliyah, you're a good Jew, you make Aliyah, nothing else matters. And the Tunisian community was balking. They were not cooperating. And the Sachnut said, why are you playing games? This is a matter of life and death. Why are you hesitating? And they said, because we have a rabbi here, Rabbi Nisan, the Shliach of the Rebbe Pinson all over Shalom. And Rabbi Nisan asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said they should leave. And wow. So they came to Rabbi Pinson and said, you're playing with fire. He said, I asked the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said it's okay for us to stay. It's safe. They're going to leave us alone. I have to leave. They were shocked. And they flew to New York. So the Rebbe did not see people privately. The Rebbe did not see, but the Israeli leaders, the Rebbe saw till the last day. The Israeli government had an open door by the Rebbe. When the Rebbe was not seeing, they would go to his house in the middle of the night and meet him privately. Nobody would do a meeting. The Israeli leadership had an open door by the Rebbe. They didn't talk about stuff. The Rebbe was available to them always. Always. Even though they didn't listen to the Rebbe on so many issues, the Rebbe was so he loved Eretz so much, and they knew the Rebbe was a friend. They understood. They understood the politics, they understood the war, they understood it all. And it was very important to them. So they came to 7-7 in the middle of the night in 1984 or something like that. And the Rebbe, how could you say to stay to this? The PLO is moving there. And the Rebbe said, the Rebbe told them straight, Yesh lachem hamodein shalachem, v'yesh li hamodein shali. You have your sources of secret information, and I have mine. Tunis is safe for Jews. Period. They're still there. The PLO is in Israel. The PLO is in the West Bank. I'm sorry, in Gaza. Hamas is the PLO. And the Tunisian Jewish community still stands. But the Rebbe said this 40 years ago. The Rebbe said this 40 years ago. In other words, it was a philosophical idea. Jews don't run. Stay where you are. You never have a good reason to leave. This is in a microcosm, in a small way. This story with Moshe Rabbeinu, the Mizbeach was the message. Stay here. But let me give you another side of the coin. Just I'm going to close in the class. I know a Jew who lived down Kanai, named Count El Kayim. I met him many years ago in Florida. Who he told, and I may have heard from other questions as well, that Morocco at one point had over 250,000 Jews, over 250,000. And Israel wanted them. Israel needed them. They wanted the people. They wanted the work. They wanted the laborers. They wanted to establish the country. They never had shluchim in Morocco. And the most important shliach of the Morocco didn't actually live there, but he would visit the chassid by the name of Rabbi Benjamin Gordensky. May he rest in peace. He was one of the closest people to the Rebbe in the world. I mean, people who know will tell you that the closest person to the Rebbe was Rabbi Chadakov, and after Rabbi Chadakov, Rabbi Goldman. He spent thousands of hours in conversation with the Rebbe, thousands. He worked with the Rebbe directly. Him and the Rebbe would talk like friends. I mean, he was not a friend; he was a chassid. But the Rebbe and him had a kind of communication that nobody but Chadakov had. And Chadakov never left the Rebbe's shadow. Rabbi Goldman was all over the world. He was the roving shliach. And he was in charge of the whole North African Chabad undertaking. He paid the bills. He raised the money from the joint, but he paid the bills. And he was called in Morocco Binyamin HaTzadik. The Sfardim called him Binyamin HaTzadik, the Tzadik Binyamin. You know, when he would come, he was revered. He was the Rebbe Shliach. And they knew, the Sochnut knew. The Israeli Immigration Department knew that if Binyamin Gardesky says no, they're not moving. They knew how much power he had, that the rabbis in Morocco, the Chachamim in Morocco, who were still leading their community, in other words, rabbis had power in the Tzaddik world at that time, would not go if Rabbi Gardesky said no. So Sachnut put huge efforts into immigrate, get the Morocco just immigrate. It must have been after the war, 67, but I'm not sure. Maybe before. And the rabbis asked Rabbi Gardesky. And the Gardesky asked the Rebbe. The Rebbe said, don't say a word. What? And they immigrated. And the Israeli government knew that the only reason they got this 250,000 Jews is because the Rebbe kept quiet. And they acknowledged it.
Why would the Rebbe?
So why? So this is a contradiction, two stories, two different. I don't know. I'm telling you the two stories to point out the irony. I'm pointing it out. You know, on one hand, the Rebbe says Tunisia had a few thousand Jews, and it's not safe. It wasn't safe. Jews always had to look over their shoulders. There was violence. You know, it was not. It was not PLO violence. It was just Muslim violence. You understand? But Morocco also has violence. The only two countries that Jews live in to this day in the Arab world are Tunisia and Morocco. The Jews have to leave. They do. There's two stories. You figure it out. Okay, I'll see you in a week. Okay. I had the next sikh. I know what I want to teach, but I wasn't prepared, so I had to drag this one out.
The
Okay.
class flew by.
How many ones did this left?
I have one more sikha, and then I want to do Nasa Vinishma, which I have to
Yes.
figure out.
Yes.
And then we're gonna go back to Baruch Shama. That'll be next year. I'm just taking a little bit. But it's good stuff. You gotta admit, it's good stuff.
Wait, what do you mean next year? What do you mean?
When are we gonna get to Baruch Shama? I gotta get back to Baruch Shama.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna happen before this school year ends.
Please do not finish nationals.
I'm planning on it.
And then we only have 2 minutes because.
No, the second one is Nasa Vinishma. It's one more sikha.
Oh, one more.
Yeah, and then that's.